Hi, welcome to episode 4 of Vegetables Matter. This is a podcast about the fiber arts, knitting, crocheting, spinning, carding, dyeing, etc. I'm really excited for today's episode. I have a few finished objects for you and a new whip. But before I begin, I actually wanted to talk about I wanted to respond to a topic that Jenny from Handmade in Woolen, but now, before and now, Tiny Paper Foxes, brought up and was talking about. She was talking about the term slow fashion, and she was kind of saying that maybe she didn't love that term and was looking at maybe using the term slow fabric, kind of liking that term instead, and wondering about other people and their relationship to that. Ooh, airplane. So I just wanted to respond to that. I thought it was a really interesting topic. First and foremost, it's been really interesting getting more and more into the fiber arts and especially garment making and that kind of stuff. And realizing that for a lot of people, realizing that I'm part of this fashion movement. And that's been a really bizarre thing for me because I have never really resonated with that word fashion. I'm pretty disinterested in fashion. It doesn't occupy a lot of headspace for me at all. So it's been a weird thing for me to then have some people who I find really inspiring to then have it be very much about fashion. The one thing I'll say about that is it's really nice to I really don't care that much what my clothes look like. I mean, I guess I must in some way, shape, or form, but I'm not super picky about things, which means it's actually pretty easy to knit for myself because things can be a little bit amiss. Maybe I don't love it, but I still wear it. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, it's handmade. It's great. I love it. It's, I'm not super concerned about like precise fit or anything like that. So that's a weird thing for me about fashion. So I liked her bringing it up to be like, oh, maybe that doesn't have to be what it is for me. I can actually reject that word if that's not something that works for me. So another thing that for me is important is again a while ago, Jenny, and she had actually stopped podcasting for maybe a year or so, and it was during that time that I actually found her. So I was going back and looking at her podcasts. And she has this handmade wardrobe idea, which was a new idea to me. I'm sure she's not the only one, but she was doing a handmade wardrobe. And that was a really, really interesting concept for me. And different from where I was coming from. I kind of got into this through Fibershed. So having things just be really, really local, and just knowing and seeing where things are coming from. And I love Fibershed, and I've just wanted things to be more and more Fibershed. And then with Jenny, she was talking about the handmade wardrobe, and things weren't necessarily Fibershed. She was buying organic cloth and then sewing things out of them. And at that point, it really made me think, Fibershed, handmade wardrobe, why this one, why the other one? What are they both trying to get at? And why would I choose one or the other, or maybe try to have it be both? Or it really brought up a lot of interesting questions for me. And I think that it made me also be a little bit more flexible in how I was thinking about things. Fibershed, handmade, and then there's also just this concept of, just going to a thrift store and buying things that way. And that's so fast and easy, and, you're recycling clothes, you're making it so that maybe clothes aren't going into a landfill. And so, there's something really nice and easy about that as well. But, so kind of what works for me and why would I choose one or the other So for me, I realized that with Fibershed and handmade, what it does for me is it makes me more invested in the clothing. Whereas, if I get something at a thrift store, which generally all of my non-handmade clothes are from a thrift store, you know, they get a hole in it and, you know, I don't wear it anymore. It's done. Whereas my handmade, my hand spun, hand knit pants that I have, when I get a hole in them, I darn them. And so I think as well, if I was sewing things, then I would be more invested and say, okay, I really am going to take the time to mend this rather than just go to the thrift store again and get something to replace it. Yeah, so that's been interesting to think about, and I think that with slow fashion, that comes into play as well. One of the things that Jenny mentioned was that for a lot of people who are, you know, making their own clothes, it maybe isn't that different than the fashion industry itself. Which I think is an interesting point to really think about. That if you're just making and making and making and making, then, and you know, wearing things a couple times and then, you know, and then that's it with them, is that really different from the fashion industry as a whole? So for me, I feel like there's really been a shift as I've been getting deeper and deeper into this fiber lifestyle. You know, I've talked about this before. I don't love mending or darning or any of those things, but I find that I am coming to embrace that more and more. Not necessarily embrace it, but just kind of integrate it into part of what I'm doing. And also finding a space to do it that feels good and comfortable is important, I found with darning. So, you know, I think that before it's just like, there is something that's so much more glamorous about creating something new. You know, it's exciting. We love it. We're just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this thing. It's so exciting. Whereas when you take a project and you're fixing it, for me, I think there are some people who do really like mending and altering and that kind of stuff. But for me, I just want to like create something new. But that is shifting and changing. And so it is something I'm working on too, where it's like, as I'm getting more and more pieces to my wardrobe that are handmade or Fibershed, then, you know, I really want to be taking the time to be maintaining them rather than just making more and more and more. So for example, those pants that I talked about, you know, it's not that glamorous of a thing, but they don't stay up very well. They're just supposed to like stay up because of some ribbing, but mine are made out of alpaca, so it's just like loose. So I just put a belt around them, but I don't actually have belt loops. And so, you know, it's not exciting or thrilling for me to think about taking that and making belt loops, but it is something that I really want to be doing sometime soon. So just taking those little projects and fixing them and making them work for continued life and use is a really important thing. Yeah, so that's kind of my commentary about slow fashion. So to my finished objects, you can see I'm wearing one. This is the Waves of Change Capelet by Jeanne Ruppert that I've showed already as a whip. So it is finished, and I'm really, really pleased with it. I think it's super pretty and super fun. I'm wearing it over this sweater that I'll talk about in a minute, I guess. This is a handmade sweater, too. I guess I'll just show you, although I think my camera does like a mirror thing. Hi, cute cat. This is Mintaka. So you probably won't be able to read it, but I guess I'll just show it. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. That's my seat. That's my seat. Hi. Let's see. Yeah, so I guess the only thing really to say about this is that in the instructions, this is a free pattern off of Ravelry called Waves of Change. And I already talked a little bit about some modifications, nothing major. Here she had some words. She said the times they are changing, and I just kept it going with what was on the back. I changed the sailboat a little bit to make it a shape that looked a little bit more like a sailboat to me. And then she had said in the pattern that there are 66 stitches at the end when you cast off, and she says that's a little tight around the head. And so I thought about, well, so she had, okay, in the pattern, there's a decreasing round after each of the wave sections. So here and here, and then here she has you do 2 rounds of decreasing stitches, and then here another 2 rounds, I want to say. And so when she said that it was maybe a little bit too tight, then I said, well, okay, instead of doing 2 rounds here and having it really kind of come in, which was a little bit noticeable, although it looks beautiful too. I decided, okay, I'll just do 1 round here and then do, the rounds here. But so I did this and kind of changed and adapted the whales and the water is life at the back, kind of to fit the number of stitches that I had. I think I have like maybe 2 extra whales and a little bit of space as well. So, gosh, sorry, I'm not talking about this articulately. Anyway, so I just did 1 decreasing round, and then I did, 1 or 2 decreasing rounds, and it still just seemed plenty big, and I just did another decreasing round. So I do end up having the same amount of stitches that she had at the top, and I like it. I think it fits nicely. But I have more decreasing rounds here and less here. So that was just one thing. But I think that the size of the neck is good. I don't have tons of experience knitting sweaters, so I have this sweater, which I guess I'll take this off and show. And you can see this has a really wide neck. And it's designed to be that way. It was this boat neck, which was fine. I just did it that way. But I do find that it's difficult to figure out something to wear underneath it. Things can just kind of pucker up and look a little bit strange. So this one has the wide neck, and it's maybe not my favorite. And then the sweater that I recently knit for my mom ends up having quite a wide neck as well. And I just feel like, everything I make has these wide necks. And I just wasn't wanting it. So I said, I'm going to have a more narrow neck, and I'm really pleased with how I did this. Just a little bit about this. This is a hand-spun, hand-knit sweater. The sheep that this comes from is an Icelandic sheep named Badger, who lives maybe about an hour and a half north of me. I haven't met the sheep, but the shepherdess, I guess. I just did a single yarn. This was like really early on when I was beginning to spin. One of my very first spin projects, and and also not knowing a lot about fiber. I was a little surprised when I put it on at just how itchy it was. I've gotten a lot more used to it now. I think it's lost some of its prickle, and I've maybe acclimated a little bit more. And so that was a little bit like, it is nice to have really soft things. This one's really soft. But I've had this for 3 years. I wear it a lot, and it really doesn't pill. People say that about, these breeds, and I was just like, what do you mean it doesn't pill? And obviously, there's a pill or 2 that happen, but it really just doesn't pill, whereas this thing is going to pill a lot, I know. But I love this. It's super cozy, and it's a great sweater. Okay, so that is my first finished object. Yucks. Next, can you see it? Oh yeah. Next, let's just show this little snow person I made. So I think I've talked a little bit about seasons. I love the changing seasons. For me, it is super, super critical to live in a place that has 4 distinct seasons. I would never want to live somewhere that didn't have that. I love the changing of the seasons. And I really love having little decorations that I can bring out and change around, and just kind of have little decorations. So just slowly over the years, I'm kind of making, one new one every few months, and just saying, okay, well, that's over now, but I have this idea, but I'll do that next year. And, not being too stressed about it, but just kind of slowly adding. So this is my little addition for the winter season. And I was also noticing that it's pretty fun because it ends up using a lot of different techniques. So the 3 balls of snow, are wet felted, and then I needle felted the eyes and the nose. The little scarf is knit, and the hat is crocheted. So I think it's kind of a fun little amalgamation of lots of different techniques. I would like to make a second one of these. I already have the balls ready for it, and the rest really doesn't take that long. So I'm planning to make a second one, and this is actually going to be a giveaway. Yeah, so it's not made yet, but it shouldn't take that long. The scarf takes not very long to knit, etc. So I'll be making this soon. So if you are interested in having a little snow person to add to your seasonal collection, sorry, I'm just like waving this around, then comment below, and I guess, when will I draw the winners? I guess just before my next podcast. Yeah, I guess I'll draw them and announce the winners. So, I mean, you have a month to do it. Yeah, if you're interested, I would love to make another one and send it to one of you. I think there's a good chance I'll know you. I do not have a big following on social media. Still something that I really think about and question a lot is how to navigate this world of social media. Anyway, but Annie, I'd love to give one to you. I thought about just making one for you. Mom, I'd love it if it's for you. A podcaster who I watch, I'd love it if, I was thinking about, just maybe making one and sending it to you. But I decided, might as well do it this way and have it be, you have to do a little bit of something, and then hopefully I get to send it to a dear person. So, yeah, I'll be making a little partner for this snow person. It doesn't have a gender. I don't think it really, it's just a person. I don't think that's this snow person, or maybe snow people in general, have gender. Gender is not necessary in all things. So, yikes, can we stand up? It's on this rock that's not very flat. And the scarf and the hat really do kind of make it heavy in some ways, and I kind of had to needle felt the bottom a little bit more after I put them on, because before it would stand up, and then it's like, it's heavy in the front. Okay, let's fix that. So, okay, next up is a spinning FO. So this is that Jacob that I showed you that I was working on, and I think it just turned out really, really beautifully. This beautiful gray. This is for my sister, for her to make a poncho with, which I showed last time, I think. And it's not the only skein. I'll be doing some others as well, but here we go. There it is. Since doing this, I've kind of taken a break from working on stuff for her, and I had just a number of like little bits and pieces of different things that I had dyed. And I also had this project that's just sort of been banished into a corner for a while. It hasn't been my favorite to work on in general, plus I ran out of yarn for it. So it's just like, who cares about that project? But I came across some of the same type of yarn. It's Suffolk, all of it's Suffolk, and then it's a bunch of different colors that I've dyed. And I came across some little bits and pieces of some not roving, just some locks that I had dyed as well. So I'm just carding and spinning those up right now, and maybe I'll add them into that project. So that's what's on the wheel now. Small little projects. The last thing to show is just some results of a dye bath. This was doing some onion skins. I talked about it, but I didn't show it. I just rinsed it the other day. So I dyed it and then pulled it out and let it sit for about a month before rinsing. I find that can really help retain the color, whereas if you just rinse it right away, more of it will wash out. So this is all with onion skins. This is over that gray Jacob. Dun 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 dun. So it's pretty, it's nice. And then this is some white Targhee that got dyed. It's a beautiful orange now. And then this is that same Targhee, but these onion skins are my homegrown onion skins. And It's a paler orange. I don't know if that's just because I didn't have as many of them, so it was just a little bit less, or if they have less color. I don't know. But anyway, those are my shades of that. Oh, okay. Okay, last thing is my whip, which has been so much fun to be working on. This is a crochet project. I love crocheting, I love knitting. I do more knitting than crochet, but it's been really fun to get back into crocheting with this project. It's been a while since I've had a good one, and I've had a blast with it. So I was gifted this yarn. I'll show this first. I was gifted about 2 pounds of it. And I think I'll talk a little bit more about that maybe next time. Anyway, so I had all of this yarn and I was wondering what to do with it. My first thought was to do some pants, but it just wasn't quite right for this pants pattern that I've had my eye on. Yeah, it just wasn't quite right. And so I decided I've been really inspired by some different blanket projects I've seen people do. Melissa from Knitting the Stash does like a blanket a year, and I think that's a really cool concept. And also the Yarn Harlot a few years back she made this garter stitch blanket for some in-laws, like maybe someone who was getting married that was, family. And it was just like this most gorgeous plush. It was all natural colors, but these different blocks of, different blocks and sizes of these different natural colors. And just the garter stitch just looks so cushy and cozy. Anyway, so I was looking at patterns and was pretty open to either knitting or crochet, but thought it could be a nice time to do a crochet project, and found that I was most drawn to some crochet projects. So this is what it looks like so far. I can't tell if you can see those cables on it. So it's this fun cable pattern, which is new for me. It's doing front post and back post stitches, which I hadn't done before. So I saw it and I knew that I would just be learning some new techniques, and I just thought it was super beautiful, and I'm really excited about it. So it's going to be mostly this, but then there will be like a border all around it. So it's not going to be a huge blanket, just a little lapgan, they're calling it. And it's just been a joy to be working on. So it's been super nice. That is it for today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I'm excited to do a giveaway, so please comment down below if you're interested. Oh, I know people often have like a question, so because this is a seasonal giveaway, and particularly the winter season, I want you to tell me about your relationship to winter. I know it can be a harder season for a lot of people, but maybe, I don't know, I mean, take from it what you will, but possibly you could talk about maybe like 1 or 2 redeeming things, or like, okay, I don't like winter so much, but this is like the one thing I like about winter. Pulling out all my sweaters, or whatever it happens to be, or even just talk about what your favorite season is, and yeah. So comment down below, and I'm really excited to see who will win this little snow person's cousin. Okay, bye guys.